Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Congressman Kennedy. I probably do come today with a bit of a different perspective in that the men that I join on the dais are people who have vast experience here in Washington, D.C. and overseas, vast experience in national security, in the workings of Congress at the Senate and the House level. And you're about to hear from a gentleman who has vast experience as a military commander in the United States and abroad, General McNeil. So I'm a governor. I'm a governor from an inland state in the western United States. But I think what's important for you to hear from me, for me to hopefully encourage you, is that the people of the United States care a great deal about you and about your fight and about your willingness to fight. As Congressman Kennedy said, I'm a former prosecutor and a former governor. As a prosecutor, I thought a lot about the justice system in America, but more broadly about just the issues of justice and what we mean by that. And what we mean by just results and just treatment is the elevation of the human spirit. We mean that people should be treated in a way that inspires a different and a better quality of life. There used to be this emblem over one of our newspapers that had an emblem over the entrance, and it said, "O justice, when expelled from all other habitations, let this be thy dwelling place." And I thought, as an American, about that salutation really is something that's been enshrined in our laws and our Constitution, and that we were really, in a sense, a beacon to the rest of the world about our desire to have justice and the way, again, that we embedded that in all that we wrote in terms of our laws and then in terms of how we behaved as a legal system, whether civil or criminal. It was this desire for justice. And we look at the regime in Iran, and we understand that from our perspective, and from your perspective, there's very little justice. And in fact, it may be the most destabilizing force in the Middle East, and perhaps one of the most destabilizing forces in the world. We're finding a way for better lives, for less destabilization, for really peace is concerned. And so regime change in Iran, and you understand this far better than the rest of us as Americans, but we believe it because of our inherent belief in justice. You understand that it is about ultimately justice, the regime change. Now, I understand, and I think those of us on this dais, whatever our experiences have been, how complicated and difficult it is to bring about regime change. We understand it's necessary from a justice perspective. But we also understand really the intricacies and the difficult decisions that will have to be made by decision makers in this country and really around the world. But we believe in your fight. We believe in your fight as a just one. But what is not difficult from a justice perspective, what it seems to me from all that I've been able to garner in reading and listening and watching, what is not difficult, it would seem to me, is this question of delisting the MEK. From a justice perspective, it would appear to me to be the only thing that we could do. After watching the promises that were made in 2003 to the residents of Camp Ashraf, after watching many of those promises be broken, understanding the disarmament of the people at the camp in exchange for the promises that were made to them, and then sort of an ongoing series of promises, not just the United States government, the United Nations, but really the international community made to the citizens of Camp Ashraf, to know that in many respects those have been broken, and really unilaterally broken on one side. To understand how that has impacted their ability and really their sort of their quality of life, their ability to have a humane existence. This notion of transferring from Ashraf to liberty, and that it would be, in a sense, a transition. For the American people, a transition from one place to a worse place on your way to a better place is not a just transition. And so, again, my perspective as a governor without great military experience, except as the commander-in-chief for our National Guard, my sense is that the American people still fundamentally understand this because of our inherent sense of what's just and what is right. When I was governor, a group of people came to me and said, you know, we understand Iran is a long way away, but one of the biggest pension programs in the state of Colorado, probably the biggest pension program in the state of Colorado, had not disinvested from companies that had dealings and even were earning profits from Iran. And so while it's a little state of 5.5 million people, we said, you know what, we can do something about this. And we passed laws, and I signed into law a bill that required our public employment retirement account to disinvest from Iran, to be part of the economic sanctions that were being pursued across the country. So while I share this stage with people with vast experience out of Washington, D.C., what I tell you is that I think you as a people engaged in this really important fight, you need to do all you can to take your message not just to Congress, not just to the departments that live and work here in Washington, D.C., but to the people of this country, and do it through governor's offices, do it through legislatures, ask for resolutions, ask for even legislation. Because at the end of the day, the 50 states in this country have an important political statement to make back to Washington, D.C., even in times where they may not substantively be able to affect the decisions made. They can certainly give you the added sort of strength of numbers and the strength of voice to say, we want justice. We want justice in Iran, but we also look to the people at Ashraf and Liberty, as we've said today, as asylum seekers, as refugees, and that their conditions that they currently live and exist under are not just conditions, are not humanitarian conditions, and we, the people of America, we breathe something different than that which we see happening in Ashraf and Camp Liberty. So I think the strategies talked about today are right. To look at it from a budgetary aspect, from the ways that we can penalize Iraq for any kind of involvement it has or complicity it has with Iran, with Tehran, to look at the Maliki regime and ask all the important questions about their involvement with Iran or their desire to keep the MEK listed as an FTO, to ask all those questions and ask them from a perspective of how we punish them. But I think as well, make this a justice question and publicize it throughout the United States, and do everything you can to look at decision makers throughout the broad areas of this country, throughout the broad political landscape, and ensure that you educate not just the American public, but you educate the decision makers within states so they understand your cause and can be part of your cause. Americans believe in justice. Emerson said, "Justice evermore, and he who battles on her side, God though he be 10 times slain, count him victor, glorified, a victor over death and pain." Thank you for your commitment to this just cause.
Thank you so much, Governor Ritter.